Nicholas, you star in Red, White, and Royal Blue as Prince Henry, who falls in love with the son of the President of the United States. If I understand correctly, you were cast first of the two of you. What was the process like trying to find the perfect Alex for your Henry? Were there a lot of chemistry reads?
Yeah, there were quite a few. And it was a funny thing because we I didn't remember this, but we did a really sort of hyper emotional scene, the Kensington Palace scene. And so by the time it actually came to filming that on set, I feel like I'd done it like a million times, and you know met with some really really fantastic actors. And I think actually being on the other side of that casting process, it was very eye-opening in the sense that so you'd meet some really fantastic actors, but there would just be something not quite there, and it's no fault of their own. And really, as an actor myself, who's been in that position many many times, you start to realize it's kind of not a personal thing, and sometimes it's something very specific and out of your control. And along came Taylor, and Taylor just kind of had had everything I think that the team were looking for in Alex. And I think just especially that sort of charm and that sense of humor. And I got this feeling straight away that we were going to become mates. And luckily that did turn out to be. And yeah, we had such a fun time making this movie.
And the book on which it's based has a substantial fan base. So there was a lot of attention around the project before you even started filming it. Were you already hearing from fans as soon as just your casting was announced, even before you started shooting?
Yeah, it's a funny thing because I kind of maintain that I like to try and stay offline for as much as I possibly can. But I did remember at the time, I was less kind of strict with myself, and I did remember sort of seeing, some feedback. And I mean, for the most part, it seemed overwhelmingly positive. And um, I think I'd kind of built up enough kind of goodwill at that point. But it's something, obviously, a role that people felt extremely protective and passionate over. And I think there will always be trepidation from an audience, uh, a fan base of an existing IP, when you adapt it into film. And I mean, from most of the feedback I've had since the movie has come out, people seem to be satisfied. So if that's any testament, then I think we did a decent enough job.
And what kind of feedback have you gotten? Because there's a lot of, it seems like this has been a really important film and a story to people, just because, especially of how Prince Henry is dealing with an unsupportive family and
Mm.
trying to live his life and be himself. Has that meant a lot to people?
Definitely. And I think, like there are a lot of people who watch the movie who just see it as some sort of fun, wholesome content. And I think that's great. And there are some people who, people coming up on the street who say, it really meant something to me to watch that. And I felt very seen. And I think, we're not saving lives as actors, but I think the goal is to really make things that resonate with people, and make people feel seen and heard. And you know make a movie that maybe a lot of people didn't have when they were growing up. And that's the stuff I think that really really humbles you as an actor, because um it's hard to know, it's hard to know what one sort of sense of spirituality is in terms of purpose in life. But something I feel like I've kind of narrowed down for myself is being able to have serious resonance with people. And so when people say these lovely things to me on the street, it really fills me with such pride.
And there's such a genuine longing in Henry, but also the film has these elements of humor as well. It's
Yeah.
a very fun film. Which is easier for you? Which is more challenging for you as an actor, the humor or the deeper emotional stuff?
That's a really good question. Look, the fun is just fun, and the days are lighter, and it's more a sense of play. But equally, I mean, I really thrive and enjoy the moments of introspection and pain and conflict, because I think that's the kind of that's the thing that I think a lot of us actors are kind of really searching to kind of explore, and I think that's one thing I always really loved about Henry, is he has a really strong sense of self, and he's very emotionally mature, but his circumstance is very particular and it is very oppressive. And I think those two things in sort of congress with each other, and culminating in, that sort of Kensington Palace scene, was just so gratifying from an acting perspective. And I think that a through line I've kind of noticed in my work is when I kind of get to do those scenes of conflict, I mean, it really kind of fills me with a very sort of excited energy. So that's basically an extremely long-winded way of saying I can't choose either one.
The film was co-written and directed by Matthew Lopez, who has a theater background, won a Tony and an Olivier Award for The Inheritance. Do you think that theater background influenced the way he worked with actors, or what he brought to the set of Red, White, and Royal Blue?
Yeah, well, I mean, he was very adamant we have a couple of weeks of rehearsal beforehand, which is, not very typical unless, you're doing something that requires a sort of fairly heavy pre-production. So that was one thing that definitely was very sort of theater focused. I think he's very specific on text, which is also very, very theater. It was interesting, and I think the script. I mean, it's heightened in some capacities, and we kind of in some capacity. Sorry, and we go along with that because that's kind of the tone of our world, and I think it works really, really well. And so I think really the movie ended up being a very sort of nice blend between Matthew's wonderful sort of theatrical skills and a sort of a groundingness that hopefully Taylor and I, and among the other fantastic cast, brought to the table.
And there are intimate scenes between you and Taylor, which require a lot of trust between actors, and also between the actors and the filmmakers. What's the process of working alongside an intimacy coordinator to craft those scenes, to tell story through those scenes, and to make sure everyone's sort of comfortable?
It's funny because Robbie Taylor Hunt, who is our wonderful intimacy coordinator, he and I have worked together twice now, because he was my coordinator for Mary and George as well. And so given the context of my last few projects, I kind of have become very familiar with working with intimacy coordinators now. And I mean, it's very bizarre how these are a fairly new invention and haven't existed for a really, really long time, because they can help sort of intellectualize something that can seem really, really terrifying for a lot of people. I'm quite lucky that I've really worked with people who are very supportive, and now I've become very sort of comfortable within that space. But Robbie was really able to help us choreograph, a sense of yearning, falling into a sense of deep love. And, we never want a scene of intimacy, I think, to feel, solely salacious or not purposeful in a way. And I think an intimacy coordinator is a really great litmus test in figuring out what the purpose of a scene is. How does this help our narrative? How does this move story? And so, Robbie worked with Taylor and I and got us comfortable with each other. It's always strange when you have to make out with your friend, but we felt really connected and supported by Robbie, and I'm very, very grateful for his really incredible work on the movie.
There's another memorable scene in the film with Stephen Fry as your character's grandfather, the King of the United Kingdom. He has such a presence on screen when he shows up. What was it like working with him in that scene?
Well, he's a national treasure in the UK as well. Americans know him a lot less, but I grew up admiring him because of his his wit and his intellect, and suddenly here he is. He's granddad. And Stephen's just someone he's naturally extremely curious and open, and I think that lent itself to how wonderfully smart he is. it was honestly just such a joy getting to work with him. You know, someone who's so experienced within the space, and you know, he has an amazing background in comedy as well. We didn't see as much of that in our movie, but we were so grateful to have him be a part of our movie.
Did you have a favorite scene from the film to shoot overall?
I mean, it's such a cliche to say, but I mean, the cake scene was so fun because, you know, for the rest of my career, I might never do a scene involving a you know, 7 foot cake, whatever it was. And it was over a couple of days, and you know, you'd find icing in your ear canal at the end of the day, and you try and sort of scrub that sort of very saccharine, sweet smell off of your skin at the end, and you just seem to kind of stay on you. Um, but it's just such a kind of iconic moment of the book and of the movie, and so I guess for that reason I like that scene.
Now, I know a lot of people have speculated about a possible sequel to anything that's as popular as this is. Whether or not that happens, what do you think the future might hold for Henry and Alex? Like, what other challenges would you imagine they might face?
Yeah, it's so interesting, you know, to try and to add to this story, and not sort of tarnish, I think, the wonderful work that's been done. You know, you hope just a sense of development for the both of them. I mean, you know, certainly for Henry, what is it like, kind of being out in the world really, and free in a lot of ways for the first time, and you know, maybe his sort of tastes change, you know, his style changes, his you know, he feels he can explore the world in a really different way. It's a fun thing to kind of imagine for both of those characters. I can speak sort of less for Alex. I'm sure Taylor has his own thoughts, but for Henry, I sort of wish him to be able to kind of realize a lot of the freedom that he didn't have for the previous 20 odd years of his life.
And for you as an actor, the last 12 months have been particularly eventful. You've had a number of major projects released. Red, White, and Royal Blue, Bottoms, Mary and George, as you mentioned. The Idea of You just came out. Did you film them all close together for them to be released the way they
Yeah,
were?
literally back to back. I think I'm the longest I ever had between any one of those projects was probably about a couple weeks. But I literally went straight from Bottoms to Red, White, and Royal Blue, and like started the day after I landed. Sorry, I had a couple weeks between Red, White, and Royal Blue and The Idea of You, where I was chemistry testing for that movie, and then I had a few days over Christmas before I had to go into pre-production for Mary and George, which then I did for 6 months, after that. So it was definitely a pretty grueling year. And kind of, in a really interesting way, I felt like I kind of had to almost rely more on my instincts than really being able to be given any sort of time to prep these projects, which was kind of a very interesting practice to see kind of what's already kicking around in there. What are your kind of I mean, really, yeah. Like, what are your instincts for each character? What comes naturally? What comes quickest? And I'm just very. I could not have imagined or hoped that all four of these projects would have had either such sort of wonderful fan support or critical or both. And it feels. I mean, especially this week I was so honored to be invited to the Met, and it feels a very long way from waiting tables and working in frozen yogurt stores about 10 years ago. So yeah, very grateful.
And what is the Met Gala like? As it seems so surreal just to watch it from afar and see all the fashion and just the footage of it.
I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, it's so. I think that sort of the expression of creativity is so overwhelming. I mean, I'm someone who's really always loved clothes, but have really kind of come into an appreciation, a much larger appreciation in the last few years, and you kind of see all the amazing designers' handiwork up close, and also, you know, really, you know, meet with a lot of your peers. I was very lucky that I was sitting with Tom Ford, who's been a style icon of mine for a while, and gave me lots of wonderful advice. And uh, I met Anna Wintour, who had seen the idea of you and really liked it, and she's just a force, a wonderful, highly intellectual woman, and I think it was just it felt very surreal in a lot of ways, you know, because I think, I mean, I really just I love the work, and that's kind of you know, if I can just work for the rest of my life, I'll be really, really happy without any of the sort of the extra stuff that comes with it. But I just felt very, very honored that I was even invited, to be honest.
And after such a year that you've had with all of these projects being released, have you noticed at this point yet, like a lot of new opportunities opening up, you know, a lot more people recognizing you from various projects?
Yeah, I think you know, I definitely have more agency in my career than I ever did before. And you know, it sometimes becomes the power of no. Is there's maybe a really fantastic project, really well written, but it's just not the right thing for you to do in that moment. And you know, having the luxury of being able to say no to things is something that I never really expected. But in the same way, you know, suddenly there's this kind of cornucopia of opportunities that I never had before, that is so enticing. And you know, I think already the sort of things that I have sort of booked for the next year or so will be really exciting, different shades to people, to myself, that people haven't seen before. And I'd say that's the really exciting thing. I like really being able to sort of I suppose surprise people with the work I'm doing, and you know, having that kind of run of 4 projects that all felt quite distinctly different. I think I'd love to kind of continue doing that.
Well, I want to congratulate you on your work in Red, White, and Royal Blue, and in absolutely everything else that I've seen you in already and will see you in the future. Thank you so much for talking with me about it.
Thank you, mate. It was a pleasure talking to you.